Welcome to another episode of Untitled Artwork. In this episode we talk about presenting your products online and how to sell them. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So in the series that we've done before is 0 to 1,000 sales, and we've done 4 or 5 episodes so far, and this will be the 5th or 6th. It'll be on the title of the video though. And today we've got presenting your product online, or essentially putting your product out there in a way that's going to get people to buy it. So talking about stuff like platforms that we use, images that we use to put our product online, how you describe your products, etc, etc. So like I said, I know we've talked about what platforms we've used in little, but there's little crossovers in this series, isn't there, where the subjects we're talking about cross over into everything. But we'll start with websites and platforms. Now, you use different platforms to me, I believe.
Yep.
What platforms do you use to sell your products?
I use Etsy. I've always used Etsy. That was the first place I started, and then I moved across to Shopify, and then I've added like little things, like a Instagram store I have on there, and I've used Facebook. I've used Facebook advertising as well. That's kind of the main things. But at the moment, my main thing is Shopify, and I'm pretty sure we've discussed it before. Etsy is really good, but I just think it limits you in what you can do to manipulate your store to make it look a certain way and different things. It's a bit limited, although it's it's good, and it's free. You don't have to pay apart from they take a percentage of your sales, but you don't have to pay like a monthly subscription.
Do you have multiple websites that you sell products on at this moment in time?
Yeah, I have my Etsy store. What I used to do is you used to be able to create like a standalone store, so you could use your own domain name and it would link it to the Etsy, and it'd have its own kind of like shop front. It'd look different. You wouldn't know it was Etsy until you purchase something, and when you went through the payment, then you'd know it's Etsy. And I always had that. So I kept the Etsy normal one because then obviously you get a search in the marketplace. But then when I did my standalone store, I just wanted it to look independent of, not to get lost with the rest of the stores that are on Etsy. But then when I moved across to Shopify, I still kept the standard Etsy store where it's like, I think the link is like etsy.com and then / your store name, and then you're still in the searches, because I still get people that order through Etsy. I didn't completely cut it off, but I just wanted to move across to Shopify because I could just do a lot more with my store, and it was more what I could do with it to enhance it, and especially the way it looked.
So do you have 2 different ways of managing your sales then? So if you get sales, do they come into the same email address, or?
Yeah, so they come into the same email address. I've set both email addresses on them. But when it comes to so for example, when I have to do my finances, that's the only ball ache, is I have to get 2 different spreadsheets. So I have a Shopify spreadsheet. Like when I'm doing my taxes at the end of the year, or when I was doing the VAT, you'd have to have an Etsy spreadsheet and then a Shopify one. And lucky enough, you need to get an accountant and let them deal with it. But yeah, it is a bit of a ball ache to kind of get the information, because they both give it differently. One does it month at a time, whereas I can't remember which one it is, but they basically, the way the information is produced is slightly different. But again, because Shopify is my main store, that the figures on there will always dwarf the ones on Etsy, because it's just there for people to use the search function to find a few things. So it makes it a bit easier.
In terms of giving people information, why would you choose Shopify over? Why did you move to Shopify?
Just so I could it would look better. I mean, I think when you present yourself,
the website builder.
Yeah. When you present yourself or anything online, the key thing is to have a website that people can use, and it looks, you want it to look. You want people to look at it and think, oh, this looks like a nice website, or intriguing, and they can look around a different way. I'm sure how many times have you gone on a different app and you've looked at an app and one app looks awful and there's other apps that look great and
Yeah.
they look really clean and plush, and it was just kind of, it was more that type of thing. And also effectively, I just think you get more free reign with Shopify in how you want to, or not specifically Shopify, that was just the one I chose. There are, you know, you both use something completely different, I think, but it was just that I had more freedom of how I wanted my store to be presented and how
Visually.
I wanted people, yeah, and how I wanted people to interact with my store as well, which made it, yeah, a lot easier for me. So that's basically why I made the move across.
What about you, Yoni?
Similar to Carl, so I started off with an Etsy shop. Like, you know, they're free, so I always say to anyone, if you're starting out, it's a good place to start. You don't pay anything if you don't sell anything. But then after I got a decent following and was making a decent amount of sales every month, I kind of just thought, rather than letting Etsy take 20% off everything, which I think is, I think it's roughly what they take. It could be a bit more, it can be a bit less, but I think it's something like 20% of every sale as a floor. I could just move to my own store and have like fixed costs. So, you know, you set your fees on your own shop, whether that's Squarespace or Shopify or Wix or whatever. They don't go up the more money you make. So whereas they do with Etsy, the bigger your shop, the more that they take. But I still keep my Etsy shop as well because, you know, nobody that doesn't know me is going to find my website that easily. So my website and my own shop is more for people that follow me on social media, people that see the content that I create. Whereas Etsy is like, if somebody's looking for a birthday gift, a Father's Day gift, a Christmas present, you know, you're then in front of like the casual consumers, like you're in their shop window basically. And I think that's still a really important thing to do. So for most people, I would say like it's good to have both. It does mean there's more work. You have to, you have to update multiple shops. You have to keep stuff relevant, make sure you're posting new products across different platforms. And like Carl said, you've got to manage the finances across different ones. But I do think there's definitely value in both. You know, it's kind of like having your own website is like having your own little shop, but being on Etsy is like being on the shelf of a supermarket. You know, more people might walk past you, but you're also getting in front of those eyeballs. I think I wanted to ask you, Carl, because I remember I think you set up your website in some ways after I set up mine, didn't you? I remember us talking about it, and I remember you looking at kind of the different platforms and you wound up picking Shopify. So do you remember what the reasons were as to why you picked that over others?
I think if I remember, it was just because it was easy. No, I think I was recommended actually from a friend. I think one of my friends, he recommended it, and also it was easy to just manipulate things. You could have different themes and I think out of all of them I looked at, it was just the one that appealed to me the most in terms of being versatile. I think that was the main reason. I remember now. I do, just to go back to what I was saying before. I do remember why I moved across. One of the main reasons I moved across for Etsy was because of postage. I found, obviously in the last, I don't know, a couple of years with everything that's going on in the world, postage has become like the prices have gone up and to send it to different places. I found with the one problem I found with Etsy is, especially with international, I couldn't switch between the prices. So I'd have to have one international price.
Right.
Like, so whether it was going to America, whether it was going to Australia, wherever. And in actual fact, the prices to send them to those two different places are quite different.
Yeah.
Quite vastly different. And I found that it was really annoying that, so I would lose money on certain products. Then I'd probably gain a quid somewhere here and there. But the way it kind of worked, I just felt like it made it really awkward. Or, I mean, if there was a way to do it, I just found it really difficult to do. So that was one of the main reasons, because obviously at the end of the day, it's all about, we start stores, what we want to do, but it's a revenue stream for us, and you've got to try your best to maximize the amount you can come in. And with Shopify, you can have proper zones, and you can specifically work out what, to the weight of what you're selling. It could be more accurate. That was one of the main reasons why I moved across.
So there's a few things there, isn't there, to consider. So there's what it looks like visually.
Yeah.
There's the financial side of it, which the fees on each site are different. And there's also the management of it as well.
Yeah.
The management of your products and services. I personally, before I talk about what I do though, Yoni, I've just been looking up then when you mentioned that you wanted to stay on Etsy because if you didn't, people wouldn't find you. I actually thought that, but I've constantly reviewed the traffic on my own website. I'm with Wix, aren't I?
Yeah.
And just to give you an example, so in the last 30 days, I've had 12,000 people or sessions visit my website in the last month. And the majority of them have come from Google. So over 4,000 of those have come from Google, 2,500 from TikTok, less from Instagram, less from Twitter. So
But do you know, like,
and
I think
that's
the important thing there is, what are they Googling?
yeah, you don't know what they're Googling, that's the
Because
thing.
if they're Googling Cali designs, which, like, to be honest, is almost certainly what they're Googling.
Maybe, yeah. I'm
then-
trying to see if I can click on it. Maybe, I don't think I can click on what they've actually Googled. But what I assumed was that they were Googling football prints or art prints or whatever. But that's just a snapshot. You can sort of do with that information what you can. But
Type football prints in and just see how. I used to do that all the time. I used to type in football, or I'd type
see
in
if it came up.
Salah print, and then I'd go to images over the list, and then I'd see, like, you generally see my stuff or somebody else that we know who's on there somewhere down the list. That was normally the way I kind of, to see where I sort of hit in Google in terms of, because people were not going to, I didn't think that people would have put Gold Star in as a search. You know, they might, if someone's looking, like you said, if someone's looking for a print for a birthday gift, they might put Salah artwork or something. And that's generally how I saw where my stuff was coming up outside of Etsy.
yeah,
But saying that, I think Yoni's right. I think the search function in Etsy is pretty good, because people, it's one of those marketplaces you can use for more than one thing. So you might want to pick up a bag, or you might want to pick up a print or a piece of jewelry, and you can do it all in one sort of area. And that's part of the reason why I kept it, why we kept our shops on there, I think.
yeah. I think there's a sort of argument for both, because, for example, that marketplace is undoubtedly good, but I don't want to discourage people from having their own website because they think they're not going to get the same amount of traffic.
No, I totally agree.
Because I think it's possible that you can. For example, to Yoni's point, if all of those Google searches are people searching for Cali designs, then that means they're searching that based on what they've seen on social media. So it's the social media that's driving that rather than anything else. So
that'd be based on what you've put into it, though, isn't it? Really? Yeah, exactly what you said. The only way you could have, as we always say, you could have the best product in the world.
Yeah.
If you don't market it correctly and nobody knows how you have it, nobody knows that you've got it, how on earth are you going to sell it? Yeah. And that what your people looking you up would be based on the hard work that you have put in to make sure that people look you up.
Definitely.
So if it all depends on the individual. If they want to have a Etsy shop and just leave it there, and every now and then people will search up a certain print, that's fine. But if you want to, like you said, get more traffic, you're going to have to put the work in either way.
Yeah. That leads us nicely into like sort of more stuff on the visual side. So we've got image and product mock-ups, what it looks like on your website, and also how you describe each product. Now, just to elaborate a little bit more, I am on Wix.com. That's what I build my website through, because it's the best tool that I've seen, the best website tool that I've personally seen to build a page that's different, and that is the way I want it to look. And I've always been and I still am in everything I do to market my product. I've always been in the camp of do something that people aren't doing. Always do something. Like if you're on Etsy, my opinion is, and this might be wrong, but I've always just thought it's so hard. It's so much harder to stand out on Etsy unless your art's really unique and you've optimized every single thing I've always just thought, just go with your own website, because no one's going to have your website design, and if they do, it's not going to be the same product, it's not going to be the same descriptions. So uniqueness is something I always look for when I'm looking for these platforms. But in terms of presenting the visual products online, did you guys find like a stock image to put your pictures in a frame, or did you put pictures in a frame in your house and take a picture of it? What did you do to set your pages up so that they looked visually appealing?
I mean, I found, I don't even think I found like a stock image. I think I found, well, yeah, I guess it was a stock image, but you can, like, there are loads of really good, really easy to use mock-ups that you can find. I think I found a stock image of a picture that I really liked and then created my own mock-up from it, because none of the mock-ups quite did what I wanted or looked exactly how I wanted. But I think, like, there are thousands of decent free ones you can get. But I think, I can't remember who said this or where I first saw it, but I think it's really important that, especially if you're selling prints of any sort of artwork, that whether it's a picture of it actually in a frame or a mock-up, that you give people a sense of what it is going to look like in a frame, on a wall, in their house, because you want people to be able to visualize it after they've purchased it. You want people to already get a sense of what the physical thing is going to look like when they have it in their hands.
Yeah, I've got a funny story. For the first like 6 months of me doing my shop, I used Karl's mock-up. So I went on Karl's website. I've never told him this. I went on Karl's website and just screenshotted his, and then put my images in it, and then loaded them up to my store.
What a legend!
That's what I'd done initially. But then the longer I went into it, I was like, I need my own one. I need to be unique, because this is just similar to Karl's. And then I found a brilliant image that looks like it's in someone's house. It looks like it's on like a nice desk. It's nice and clean. There's not too much in the background, and it's the central point is where my print is. Jezza, when you edit this, just put one of my prints up from each of our stores of what our products look like on our stores, and I think the product just looks really good. And one thing I started doing on social media as well is posting my product in the mock-up as a print, and my sales went from shot up immediately. As soon as people started seeing it as a product, they started buying so much more.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. I googled mock-up PSDs, and I put the word free at the end. That is like literally, and I would if you type that into Google, there are thousands and thousands. There are some which are free, and there are some which you can pay for. But the beauty of the PSD is that you can just click on it in Photoshop. There's a little thing that says add your image here, and all you do is double click on that area, and then you paste your image into it and save it. And then when you go back to the file, it's there, and you can sort of move the shape. The reason why it was quite important for me to do it that way is because I feel like if you take a picture and then you place it on top, you can lose quality. The quality, because you're putting a picture on top of a picture which you've kind of taken from somewhere else. So I would just use the mock-up PSDs, and then because they're PSDs, if you didn't like the color of the background, you could just change the color of the background. You could add your own whatever you need to do. It's just easy to sort of manipulate, and then you just save it as a PNG and stick it on the website. The only downside to that is that, and I'm sure you found out this. You guys must have found the same. Is that if you do the quality too high, people can take your image if you're on a white background. They can take your image, and then they can go and put it on t-shirts. They can put it on mugs or whatever, because that's all they need is to take. They just need a white background. And I found, because most of my artwork's on a white background, that it happened to me so many times. So many people would still take from I mean, even you said that you used the mock-up as a background to put your image on, but people would take my artwork, save the image, and they would just I had people. There was a period where every other day I was getting someone saying, oh, I found this on eBay, I found this here, I found that there. And the way I counteracted that was either to put a watermark on it, which I don't really like because it's not how it's going to look in someone's house when you put it on the wall. Or it's just to reduce the quality when you're saving your image, just to reduce the quality, and then have a separate image next to it on the advert of the actual image, but with a watermark over it without the mock-up. I think that is the best way to kind of get around it. And as soon as I did that, honestly, the people taking my work, it just dropped. People weren't doing it anymore.
That's actually one of the points we've got for later on in the pod, so we may as well go on to that now.
Sorry, mate. It's down the bottom there.
Protecting your product online. Yoni, you were about to say something then, no, first?
I was just going to say that's a really important thing to talk about, isn't it? You know, I think we've all, I imagine, experienced it. I've seen my artwork sold on fucking advent calendars, people selling colouring books with my artwork in there, like probably dozens of other ones that I can't even remember. I've seen loads of people that have stolen my artwork and put it on eBay.
Yoni Art Undies.
That's exclusively through my website, actually. But the truth is, like, there's only so much you can do. I think sometimes even a watermark, like, I've seen people selling watermarked merch where they've stolen someone's artwork and they just haven't even bothered to remove the watermark. But I think, though, the one thing I will say is, if people are taking your artwork, you're probably doing something right, at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I've got a bit of a different stance, as always. I went through a stage of watermarking everything. I put my signature on it all. I had watermark in the background. I'd overlaid a watermark on the image so that it covered it, so that if they did copy it, they wouldn't be able to resell it. But like you said, Carl, people were just reselling it anyway. With the watermark on. And about 12 months ago, I just completely thought I don't care anymore. And I sort of switched from protecting everything to just giving it all out. And now I post stuff without the watermark, and even recently I've done free wallpapers where people can download the JPEG for free on my website. And if you've not seen that, go to callaghandesigns.co.uk and look at wallpapers. So I sort of, I'm in the camp now, and there's pros and cons to this, but I'm in the camp of, I want to give my art away at scale for free, because I'd rather have my artwork on people's phones than other people's. Like, I want people to be using and sharing my artwork. The tactic behind that is just, I feel like my artwork's going to spread further, but I'm relying on people being good and like saying where they got that from.
Yeah.
But you're never going to get a perfect world where people tag you and everything. But I couldn't be arsed fighting it. And if people are going to sell my product without buying it first, I'm never really going to know about it unless people point it out. And they're not really taking any money out of my pocket, because I'm confident in what I can sell. Yeah. I know how much I can sell if I really hit it hard every month. And usually when I give more stuff away for free, I make more sales anyway.
I mean, that's a fair point.
There's a good community around us as well with the market that we're in. There's a good community that if people see someone copying your work, they will fucking tell you.
Yeah, that's true.
You will get told straight away, and I just think, I'll just report it. Or, if it's like I showed you an account today with someone created an Instagram, and they basically followed me on Instagram, and when I looked on the Instagram, it was their profile picture was my artwork, so I thought, and then when I clicked on it, there was 2 images of my artwork which they'd just basically completely copied, same colour scheme, same style of line work, and they had it as their Instagram, as if it was their artwork. And I just thought, I can't even be arsed messaging because
Poorly copied might have quite add
poorly
pace.
copied, it like just a complete knockoff. And I don't know how old this person was, but I just thought they're not really going to make any money from that.
Yeah.
And if they do, it's not going to be as much as what I can make from the original. So I've sort of gone completely left field with it and just thought I'm just going to give it all out for free anyway.
Yeah,
I think
you
that-
just wait. You just wait until somebody's selling his artwork on lunchboxes in China. I reckon his
Soon
his
change.
tune will swiftly change.
Do you know what happens though? Like, if you see someone making millions off it, you can sue them. You can, if they're actually using your artwork and they're making millions, you can sue them for that money. But if they're
you
making,
haven't copyrighted it, or you'd have to have some sort of
I think you can now. If it's a
but it'd be such a
carbon
ball
copy,
ache.
it would. But if they're making millions, I'd only do it
Yeah.
if they're making millions. If they're making a few grand or a few £100, it's just
See, I think I think it depends on where you are in your progression as an artist. Now, if you're at the start, it's slightly different. You're trying to get yourself out there, and then somebody's copying your work or taking your work, and within a few weeks they're at the same level as you, or they're getting more noticed. But if as we've all been doing this for a good few years now, and like you said, I'm the same. I don't want people to take my artwork, but I kind of just like whatever, because it's just I'm wasting negative energy trying to fight something that I just like. At the beginning, it used to rile me because you put all this time into creating something, all this hard work and whatever, and people just take the piss. But unfortunately, we live in a world where people will do that anyway, regardless. And I'm not going to sit here and say I've been a saint and say, listen, I didn't have a bootleg copy of Photoshop. All these types of things as I was coming up. At some point we've all done something to make it easier for us or help us on the road to progression. So it's just a question of like you said, at the end of the day, they're not gonna make any more money than you. And if you're well known enough, like all three of us are now, people will know it's not their work. They'll know it's yours. I've seen so many people who don't copy me identically, but very similar to what I do. Like, it's very touch and go as to I'm looking at it and I'm saying, you've got that idea from me, you've got that idea from me. And I'm just like at a point like, whatever, let me just carry on doing what I'm doing. But again, it's just because of how far I've come in my journey. And I guess for somebody who is up and coming and just starting out, it's
hard to
it is
disassociate it.
and you've kind of just got to you'll learn over time and how good you get that things do change.
I think it's a pretty and I understand what we're sort of touching on. There's a bit of a wild take, like what I've just said is a bit of a wild take in terms of intellectual property, but I just feel like the best way to win is to just focus on what you're doing. And if your stuff's good enough and you put the work in, whoever tries to steal off you is never going to do it as well as what you can. Like you're in control of what you can do. So that's sort of the stoic mindset.
Exactly. And if people are doing like you said, it's you got to take. Sometimes you got to take it as a compliment.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we all seek inspiration from somewhere else, somebody else, to how we got to where we are. And this is over years of learning different styles, different techniques, etc. Somebody's going to be doing the same to us, which means that you are doing something right.
Yeah, definitely. So I've put something down here which is a slightly different topic to that, but it's still within the same thing of presenting your product online. So in terms of making sales then, which is what this series is about, is there any ways that you optimize your websites or optimize what you present on social media that is geared towards people buying your stuff? Like in the way you describe your prints, in the way you launch them. Like, is there anything, Yoni, we'll start with you, is there anything specific that you do that is specifically trying to market your work so people will buy?
I guess the first thing I try and do is like build a little bit of hype. So tease it out a little bit as you're working on it, get people excited.
Give it a little rub.
Exactly, yeah.
Some chocolate
that's-
strawberries on the go.
I think
Hire
that's
a
the main
DJ.
thing is like you want people to already be excited about it by the time it comes out, because I think otherwise you're gonna blow your load in one go basically.
Yeah.
You
Well,
want.
How do you do that though?
I think it depends on the piece. Like I think one thing that I always try and do when I'm working on a print is now anyway. I didn't do this when I started because nobody followed me, so who the fuck cared? But now
I
like
did.
yeah, you did. But now like I try to post something about it as soon as I start working on it. So depending on the piece, like it could take me a while to get something finished. So you post something about it, like something that gives people enough of an insight as to what the subject matter is going to be, and then you can really kind of gauge initial interest. And I'm not saying that's like the be all and end all of why you might make something, but you can tell, if you post a really simple outline and you get a decent response off people immediately, a few comments, decent number of likes, then you can already tell like I'm gonna do all right off the launch of this project. So that's kind of the first thing that I do is put a really basic kind of teaser out there.
What about you, Carl?
The one thing I like to do is pretty much similar to Yoni, but I also like to I also gauge opinion of what, like, because I use Twitter quite a lot for my to promote my stuff, and I always ask people what they think, because I'm like, ultimately you are buying it, so let me get your opinion on what you think. So if you and then I would kind of go with the majority. I might ask a few questions, because I just think that, ultimately they're your customers, and at the end of the day, you might as well ask them what it depends. Like I said, it depends on the product. But obviously with my clock mugs, the new ones that I'm creating, Jesse, you could put a picture up if you want.
You'll be able to find them at where?
Well, yeah, it depends when this goes live, but goldstar.co.uk.
Stick it up, Jezza. Shameless plug.
Yeah. So when I was putting it out there, I just got people's opinions on different styles, and then I went with a majority, because ultimately these are the people I'm selling to. So that's kind of how I like to, I like to them to feel that they've had a part of it as well. Their ideas have been considered and stuff. The other ways I do it is I just ask for retweets as well. I just put at the bottom of it, please retweet, because the more eyes on it, the better. And generally that's kind of my format. And I think Yoni's right. If you do teasers and stuff so you can build a hype, and because how many times have you put something out there and you think, yeah, this is gonna sell, and then 2 weeks in you're like, I sold 2. Do you know what I mean?
Some of my favourite pieces.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And another thing I think is timing as well. We work in an era where a lot of stuff we do is sports related or football related, and if the team you are selling something about has just lost, or they've been on a losing streak, you're kind of like, you're loath to do it because the timing's not right. But whereas, and I know that we've had this discussion in the past about jumping on the hype of what's going on at the moment, but it does work if you sell something and there's a buzz about this player or this team or whatever, then you're likely to get more eyes on what you're doing, because everybody who is on social media, and if your team's just won, or they've just won a cup, or they've won a trophy or something, then their eyes, they're all trying to absorb as much information as possible. So if you've got it out at the right time, then people will come across it.
That makes sense. So put teasers out, ask people their opinions, ask people to share it as well. Yeah. Don't be too proud to ask. The first thing I think of when you've mentioned that is the regularity of new products that you bring out, because although there's some things that overlap between your strategy and mine, I put new artwork out every 2 days now that is available to buy as a print, so I can't build the hype within that period of time. So I think if you're just starting out, if you're starting out now, in order to build that hype, you sort of need a little bit longer between products, because otherwise you're just bombarding the market, and if you've not got a following, it's difficult to keep people engaged. So is there a time frame that works well for this hype building? Like, would you say if you're starting out, would you do one product a month so that you can build the hype for 3 weeks, release it, and then or one every 2 weeks?
I think when you're starting out, hype can't really be the goal because you don't really have the audience to hype up. I think the most important thing when you're starting out is consistency, and like that can be consistency in a number of ways. It could be like you said, like getting products out quite quickly and quite regularly, or it can be high consistent quality. That means that people are going to engage with the content that you do. But I think consistency is the most important thing when you're starting out. People, whether that's people buying products or people giving you work, people want to see that you have consistently high standards.
Yeah. And that... Go ahead, Carl.
I was going to say, and with Yoni's work in specific, it's very high level detail. So the time it's taken him to illustrate that piece, you probably do want to build the hype because he's, there's a lot more time in that he's, you've probably done it over, I don't know, a few days, maybe a bit longer, maybe even a week in real life. So I think there's more, you want to put more hype into it because it's taken so long for you to do that type of, you've put enough hours in to do that type of product. Whereas, some of the stuff that I do and some of the stuff that you do, I could do mine in a couple, only because obviously years of getting to that point, but I could do a few illustrations in an hour, a couple of hours. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's important when you're building the hype. If I've taken a long time to create a piece, I want to build the hype because I want the recognition that I've taken a long time to create this piece. But whereas if I'm doing pieces quite quickly, depending on the style I'm using, then you don't really need to necessarily create as much hype because you can move on to the next one quite quickly.
Yeah. That's a good point. With my one, like I said, I'm sort of high volume, and the way I present my product online is I do work in progress shots, but for the most part, once I've got the print done, I just take pictures of me shipping them out.
Yeah.
And here's a tip: if you're not making any sales, act like you are. Act like you are. Like, people will be like, well, what if I'm not making sales and I can't ship? Put it in a frame or put it next to an envelope. Make it look like you're being busy. Yeah. Because people will buy off people who are getting sales.
Yeah, agreed.
And it worked. Like, every time I make sales and people see that, I get more sales from it. So just presenting yourself in that way as well. I've told this story before. I've sold to people who work at the post office because... Yeah. And they've bought stuff off me without even seeing the artwork. They've said, can you bring what do you do? And because they've seen me going there every day with prints, I would do football prints. They'll say, have you got any Liverpool ones? Can you bring me one in? Without even looking at the product. Yeah. So presenting your product and your business as a more successful business is a good marketing tool.
Yeah, that same thing happened to me. That happened to you in the post office. Just quickly while you're there, I was going to the same post office because I was obviously had a full-time job at the same time as trying to do this, and I used to go every day. I'd do my artwork at home, post it, and then when I went to work at lunchtime, I'd go across to the post office and drop the stuff off. So much so that I was going in so often that they actually stocked 2 of my prints in their shop in the little post office. And luckily enough, the guy behind the counter was a Liverpool supporter as well, so it made it a lot easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. If you do it, then more people are going to see it and get it out there.
Definitely. I think I'm conscious of time for this one because we wanted to keep it short-ish. But one last thing that we haven't covered in terms of presenting stuff online is how you price your products. And I know we've talked about it in some other pods, but if we can just zone in on that for 10 minutes and then finish on that. For pricing your products, and how do you do that when taking into account your costs, shipping costs, etc. Yeah. So how did you initially price your products, and how do you price your products now?
So I initially just looked at what everyone else did. It's as simple as that. I went on Etsy, I looked at what people are selling similar stuff to me, and I just saw what the going rate was, and I looked at whether I deemed mine. I don't know if you can deem it better or worse because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But I just looked at what other people were doing for mainly around the same size, shape, the same sort of print thing, and that was how I initially based my products, and then as over time, I've based it on what I think how valuable I feel my time is going into each product. And just because you finish one illustration 10 times quicker than the other one, that doesn't mean that illustration is less valuable. It just means that people are paying for the years and effort you've put into learning to get to that point where you can do it that quick. Because when you started, it would never have been that quick. Do you know what I mean? So the biggest issue for me has always been shipping. Like, it just continuously goes up. And there was a point where on a lot of my products that I was posting out, I was taking a loss just from shipping. So around the world, specifically, just because of, the pandemic, Brexit, a million other reasons. So I base my costs on all those factors, really, like, because you have to, especially if it's your full-time job, if it's your only source of income, you need to be realistic. I got to a point where I'm like, I can't just keep taking a loss on postage just because I want to be nice and I want people to, I've got to look after myself, because that's the most important thing. You've got a family and stuff. So, unfortunately, after a period of time, I had to up the postage costs. And I did have a few people that complained about the postage, but I'm like, and the one thing I said to them was, but you are paying for not just the postage, you're paying for the envelopes I have to buy. You have to pay for the all the stuff that you put in the packaging, the paper. That's when I class postage or costs. It's not just going to the post office and handing it to the over the counter. It's all the other stuff I have to do before that, and for me, that is part of the cost of postage.
What about you, Yoni?
I used to price mine less. Now I price them a bit more, because I think when I first started, I was like,
because I'm a baller.
Well, yeah.
Because my work is shit hot.
I used to just think like, oh, nobody's going to care. Like, I just want people to buy stuff. Whereas, I just priced them at a point where it's worth it. I guess, like, I know that sounds a bit shitty, but like the truth is, like, sometimes you want to drive sales and you want to do that kind of thing, but ultimately, like, if you sell a product for $4.99 and then you make that one sale, you've got to package it, you've got to go to the post office, is that $4.99 worth it?
Yeah.
I think we all have this thing, especially at the start, where it's just like, oh, another order's come in. But ultimately, like, if it's how you earn your living, that's how you have to think about it. How, like, obviously Karl quite rightly made the point about, like, people are really paying for your time and skill, but they are also literally paying, if you're a one-man band, they are paying for your labour of packaging it up, taking it to the post office, like, and that has to be worth it for you.
Yeah.
So although it's really exciting, and I still love, like, when you get an order for something, it's still cool and it is fun to think like, oh, this is going to be on someone's wall in their house, but has to pay the bills. So you got to just think about it. How many sales do I expect to make in a month? What's the minimum that I could, like, sustain my lifestyle with, and then divide that by how many sales you think you might make, and that'll be where it is. I think most people, typically you're looking at a range of, for a standard, like, print, like the type that we sell, where it's not like, it's not screen printed or it's not any sort of special thing. You are probably looking at somewhere between 10 and 20 quid for your standard sizes. I don't think there's a huge range out there. But, that changes for everybody. I know some people who get them really, like, printed in a really high quality way, and they might charge 40 or 50 quid because it's a much more technical process. And I know people that charge less, but just, my price point right now is where I'm comfortable. Some people say it's too much, some people say it's too little. The one thing that Karl quite rightly said, though, which, I'll be honest, it actually really pisses me off every time it comes up. Somebody will message you being like, oh, I can't believe you're charging that much for postage. I do not make money on postage. Yeah. I charge what the postage costs. And sometimes for whatever reason, I'll send a print to fucking New Zealand and it never turns up. So I have to either refund them all the money, so I've lost everything, including the postage, or send it again.
Which takes up all the profit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You've lost the print.
There are no small sellers out here making money on postage. I charge people what it costs for the envelope, what it costs for the packaging materials, and the postage costs. Like, I'm not out here buying a luxury yacht because I'm charging you £3 for postage when that's how much it costs.
Yeah, I think you can adjust the price based on volume. Like, it depends what camp you're in. Like, for me now, I can sort of afford to do deals now and then where I sell them at half price, like a £5 for an A4 print. It'll still cost me £1 or £2 to send, but I know I'll do 100, 200 orders on that sort of deal, so I can afford to do it. But long term, I keep them higher because obviously, like you said, I have to sell less to make the amount that I need to live on. So that's the decision that goes into it. And just to give people an example, an A3 print to send now is £3.35. It's gone up. That's the way I send them. That's second class as well. So if I was to send that first class, it's like £3.60, and I charge a tenner for that. So it comes out of that. It comes out of that because I include that price in the shipping price in the price of the print. I don't do postage on top, so it's not much. Do you know what I mean? It's not. It's not. It
is long term, isn't it? Like, do you know what I mean?
Long
Like,
term, yeah.
Yeah, for you, you think about you charge £10, but so when people see it costs £10 online, if you sell 100 of them, that's what's that? That's a £1,000, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you take away 360 quid if you're losing £3.60 off each one.
Yeah, that's just for the postage.
Yeah, and that's not far off half.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
But then you've probably got the cost of the tubes or envelopes plus your labour time. Like that.
The
that's
printer.
not free, and then you've got the cost of the print. So and then 15-20% goes to the tax man.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you are very quickly left making £2.
Yeah.
On a £10 product.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, and then you just got to think, so how many do I have to sell to get to, like, literally, like, a minimum wage job, which I think a minimum wage salary is something like 19 grand.
Yeah, you'll take home £1,200, £1,300 a month on a minimum wage salary. So that could be 200 prints.
Easily,
and it's just like this is a little message to people who buy prints of us. You have no obligation to buy it. If the price doesn't suit you, then just don't buy it. Don't message somebody complaining about the price of their thing. Like, at the end of the day, it's been marked up for a certain reason. Like, we've just given you a million reasons why it might be a certain price.
Oh, message me if you don't like the price of my product. I want that smoke. I will take that smoke all day, but don't complain at the response you get.
I
remember once I had somebody, like, publicly tweeting me because he said that I was ripping people off with my postage prices.
Fucking hell.
So I was like sending him this was like when I first started, and I couldn't believe it. He was like saying I was scamming people because I was selling an A1 print, which is like the biggest parcel size that Royal Mail will send. And I think at the time it was something like, I was only sending them second class signed for because it was like a 50 quid product. So I wasn't sending it like just second class standard, because if it gets lost, that's quite a big loss. And I think it was something like £6 or £5.60 or something for that size parcel. And he was just like, this is fucking ridiculous. You should be able to just whack a first class stamp on it and send it. I was like, mate, you've not got a fucking clue what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I'd have said, you know what? I'm going to send you the tube for free. I'll send you the tube for free, and then as soon as you get it, stick it up your arse. That's what I'd have responded with.
I had somebody moan about the price of
right up there
drinking mugs once, and I was just like, "It's like, oh, but you can get this on Sports Direct. I'll go to Sports Direct then, bro. Go to
Yeah.
Sports Direct, and you will never find this print in Sports Direct. Yeah,
The
No one.
difference is, you fucking prick, Sports Direct buy them in quantities of 1 million.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they can do it cheaper.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah,
So that
whenever
was still-
people say anything like that, but it's the same. Like, I think one thing that I've gotten from running a small business like this is perspective. Because I used to go to like craft markets and stuff, and I'd see somebody selling like these cute little like ceramic items, and I'd be like, "That's mental. That's 40 quid." But then all of a sudden you realise that like it's just a really different process. Somebody like lovingly creating something and then selling it in small quantities is not the same as the way that IKEA sells glasses.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly that. And everybody has to start somewhere, don't they? So
Yeah.
if we get to a point where we do make it, and we can, then we will lower the prices, because we will get all our stuff wholesale for 10 times cheaper. But we
Fuck
are not
that,
at
mate.
point.
The more stuff I sell, the higher my prices are going.
Yeah.
That's how you make that real bank.
£25 postage.
Yeah. Jezza, can we get where Yoni said "you fucking prick" and just put it on a loop? Just that can be the intro to the podcast.
You can, Callie, you can set that as your notification whenever I text
Yeah.
you, because that'll probably be what the gist of it is.
We can play it every time you ask what the clap's about.
Yeah, exactly.
You fucking prick.
You fucking prick. Let's make a tune out of it and release it as a Christmas
Get
number
the
one.
ukulele.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Mash it up. UA mash up for Christmas. So I think we'll leave it there then, chaps. I think we've covered quite a bit there. That's a decent episode that some people are going to find pretty valuable, especially if you're just starting out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
For sure. Thanks for watching another episode of Untitled Artwork. Don't forget to like and subscribe, motherfuckers.